Hey, Redcasters, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Go Big Red.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast, the Husker Fan Sports Show.
Welcome to the Go Big Redcast. I'm your host, David Gaspers, and I'm with Redcast Rob.
Well, after a break for a couple of weeks here and just getting out and taking my family to Disneyland, I've perfected the use of my camera and able to observe everything from a distance with it. And I'm now here to share all of my podcasting secrets from other podcasts around Disneyland with the rest of the Redcast.
Is that a Connor Stallions reference? I'm not.
I have no idea what you're talking about, Dave. Never heard of her.
Did you buy an intern extra tickets for Disneyland? And
well, my 4-year-old daughter, if that counts.
Sure, absolutely. She's a Redcast intern. She's not getting paid.
I also bought a custom lightsaber. I'd be happy to show it to you.
I've heard about these custom lightsabers.
They're pretty cool. I've got it right here if you want to see it.
That's between you and Rachel. Don't get us involved with that.
Hey, now.
I'm also with Boomer.
Well, Rob, if you start selling vacuum cleaners, we'll really know what's up, I guess. But I'd also like to give a shout out to any of our Michigan State listeners. Yeah, you may have won at football, but we haven't lost in basketball yet this season. So take that.
You know, Boomer, I was going to get into the vacuum cleaner services, but I hear it really sucks.
Okay, Rob.
All right. Thanks for tuning in, Redcasters.
That's the show. We'll eventually start talking about Nebraska ball. It looks like Fred's got his team on a hot start. Another victory appears to be in store here tonight. Who are they playing, Boomer? The Rattlers of Florida A&M, is that right?
Florida A&M Rattlers.
Excellent.
The Rattlers.
That's right.
Vaunted series back and forth.
So
66 to 40 last time I checked.
We'll get that. And in some past years, we were ready to talk about basketball because we didn't want to talk about football any longer. But that's not the case. We did take a loss last Saturday in East Lansing. You listened to the show last week. We talked about how you shouldn't mess around with the Spartans and leave them in that game. They've been playing a lot of their opponents very close and finding ways to lose. And well, they eventually found a way to win. Now, I mean, there's some that might not like some of the refs' calls, including Matt Rule, but at the end of the day, it was a 2017 loss. And we got to bounce back, and we got a home game against Maryland. So we'll start breaking down the chirps here in a little bit when we get into scoring explosion and throwing the bones. But let's put on our scarlet-colored glasses and talk a little bit about last week's game and what we liked and what we didn't like. Rob, the West is a complete mess. It's 5-4. Wisconsin lost. Iowa could easily lose the Rutgers this week. We're not out of this thing. And we also aren't bowl eligible, and that still needs to happen, right? So what are your thoughts from last week's loss?
It was frustrating because I felt like it was a game that we should have gone in there and if we had just done what we were supposed to do, we should have won that game by at least a couple of scores. It just is super frustrating to see some of the same mistakes on the offensive side of the ball made over and over again. I also feel like there was a couple of decisions in the option game and in the pass game that were very questionable. Obviously, some things, as far as like pass interference not being called, a touchdown on their end on the defensive side that it should not have been a touchdown. I mean, those are things that you can't go back and you can't take them away, because had we completed some of those plays and again not turned the ball over 3 times, we probably would have won that game by at least a field goal, if anything, right? So
yeah, I mean, it was a toss-up game, right?
It was.
At the end of the day, we didn't get the calls that you need to go or avoid the turnovers. Boomer, we had 2 chances in the fourth quarter there to either tie or take the lead, and just couldn't get it done. And I mean, you wish you would have gotten another 15 yards and let your special teams in Alvano, see if you can get that thing into overtime, right?
Yeah, that game was just kind of a microcosm, again, of just how Nebraska's been playing all year. I mean, defense played. It wasn't the greatest defensive game they played, but it was okay. I mean, it could be enough to win, what the defense put out. But again, the problems we've been harping about all season, constant turnovers in the offense. You can't turn the ball over 3 times every week and expect to win every one of them. And then the offensive output was kind of how we've described it all season. We had about one really good drive that we got a touchdown in, and then everything else was just either a broken play that, Harburg managed to scramble for. I don't know if it was broken, but it was a nice run it was just a big chunk play that set up the touchdown. And then the one drive, which was basically just helped along by continuous Michigan State penalties. There was just never really those great consistent drives by Nebraska. It seems like they're good for about one good, solid-looking drive every game, and then everything else is just hope the defense keeps you in it, and you break those couple of plays, which gets you the victory. And that was kind of the recipe in some of our earlier wins this season. And just didn't work this time. The defense just, had a few plays get away from them. Michigan State had a few chunk plays where they got some yardage and points, and it just didn't work in our favor. So that's just how it goes.
That recipe for success is in Vegas Chairs watching tonight. Says -12 in the turnovers. Can you bring that back up?
Oh, of course.
This year is last in the nation. That sums up all 4 losses. It sums up our victories too, Jared. I mean, it's just been a consistent thing, and that's really hard to do. And when you pair that with an offense that's not explosive, and you're going to play low-scoring games that are going to trend towards being close because they're low scoring, the margin there is really thin, right? And some programs like Iowa have been doing this for 2 decades, and they've got it figured out well enough that they can win a lot of those. I don't know if I necessarily want to be just like Iowa, but at least for this year, that's how we're going to continue to win. And if we could clean up some turnovers, the offense would, have more chances to get a few of those chunk plays and get a few more points on the board. It is something that they'll have to figure out over the next 3 weeks. All winnable games. The bowl is still out there. The West is still out there. I don't know. Rob?
I mean, obviously, again, the kind of fan I am. I think we're going to win every single one.
Tell me about the Kool-Aid, Rob.
I do. I think that it seems like a loss like this. The last time we lost, we won 3 in a row. So
yeah, there you go.
We just lost. Now we're going to win 3 in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, I could put it into so many words, but I'm going to just leave it at that. I mean, you could tell Rule was pissed off. And while he sounded like he was in the press conference, he sounded like he was pissed off at the refs and all these other things. I guarantee you that those kids were hearing it in the locker room and on the practice field. He's a motivator. He really is. Guess what? We're 5-4. We've won more than we've lost this year. Let's be absolutely positive about that. Can we win one more out of the next 3? Absolutely. Should we or can we win the next 3 games? Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's, to your point of Rule being a master motivator, I mean, it was a little bit different of a press conference than he's had. It does feel like he's always speaking to his team through those press conferences. We're hearing the same thing that he's already saying to them. I think he was trying to kind of reiterate the point that he thinks they're a good team. And that wasn't all on them, right? He wants to keep them feeling like they've got a lot of confidence.
They are a good team, man. This is fun this year. This is really fun to watch.
And it is funny. The fan base, Boomer, it's extraordinary sometimes. I mean, I've been listening to some of the local radio shows, and you hear callers saying they're not going to make a bowl. That's going to be a disgrace and all this stuff. And 1 week ago, it was we're going to win the West. And now we're back to we can't make a bowl. I mean, can the fan base be more bipolar? I don't know.
No, it's pretty much like a Dr. Pepper Fansville commercial. Guys, this is the first play. I mean, and that's just the nature of fans, especially nowadays. It's just, it's always either you're at the conference championships in sight, or it's the worst thing ever. Fire everybody, as message board geniuses likes to say. And I think when we talk about a rule and what he says in the press conferences, certainly this loss isn't on the players, it's not even on the refs. I think some of it's on the coaches too. I don't think they schemed particularly well for that game. Either on defense, they didn't seem quite as aggressive as they normally do, and special teams, God Almighty, the punt and punt return teams on that were just. I don't know. I had questions about that the whole game. I know we had text chains going about that and some tweets we threw out there. I still don't understand the mentality of, just putting a guy back there to fair catch it, knowing he can't run with it, or you don't want him to run with it, and then catching it on the 5. That's just killing you field position wise. And we saw it over and over and over again in that game. And you couple that with not a great day from your punter, and if you don't, you're just setting your offense in such a hole. I couldn't understand that idea. You got to take a few risks back there, especially with all the talk we heard at the beginning of special teams. This season, how it was going to be such a major focus, and they're not gonna be fair catching it or let it go into the end zone, and just to have to do that in a game, I still don't completely understand that end of it. So hopefully they'll do something different this week. So.
I would like to say though, and give a shout out to Ethan Nation, because he caught every one of them that he needed to catch. He didn't fumble. Yep. There was one though, man, and I keep seeing it. And I'm only saying one because there was probably a couple, but there was one. He had like 20 yards of grass between him and the nearest defender when he got that ball. And I was thinking to myself, like, God, if he had just run forward like 5 yards, we would have had the best starting field position of the day. You know what I mean? Like, and I really don't understand it. Like, does he not trust like a Malachi or, Doss, Jaden Doss, like to get back there and catch it? Because those kids, we know they're fast. We've seen them. You know what I mean? Like,
the answer is on the field, I think, Rob. Yeah, the answer is yes, right?
Right. And so, I want to know what they're seeing in practice to where that's their strategy. Because, hey, I can sit on my couch and say what I want to say about it all day long, right? But I mean,
and we do.
But I mean,
Boomer, just theoretically, it is kind of unusual that this is not just a Nebraska thing. This has been football for decades, I guess, I suppose. I mean, it's not uncommon that you have a cornerback or a safety, a defensive secondary player catching punts. Yet they typically, we always joke that, you're on when they can't make an INT because they drop the ball. It's like, well, that's why you're on the defensive side of the ball, right? The guys with good hands are the wide receivers. But why would you not always have your wide receivers catching the punts? All right?
That's a good question. Maybe I guess the punt's coming down at a slightly different angle than your typical quarterback pass. Unless we're throwing the pass, then it kind of does come down like a punt. But, we'll get to that later.
For yourself.
Too. Yeah. I think it's just another opportunity to get a speedy guy back there that isn't a wide receiver. Maybe you just don't want to run the risk of getting a receiver hurt or something like that.
But in this year that makes up quite a bit.
Especially this year, I could certainly see that being the case. But that was just the biggest disappointment that I had. And here's another good stat from Vegas Chair here. So from Seppel in 2001, we had 850 yards on punt returns, and this year we have 24, and that's.
That's
about right. I mean, that's just so much field position you're giving up.
Devon Gross and God, who else was there in the early 2000s? I mean, we had Keo Craver. I mean, those guys were just returning punts all the time. Now, I mean, punting has evolved. I will give them that, right? I mean, punters have gotten better, different angles, able to position the punt, all that type of stuff. But that's an extraordinary stat. Defensively, I wanted to touch on really quick. Boomer, you mentioned this. I do think, and Tony White acknowledged it, it did seem to be a little more conservative last week and didn't put a lot of pressure on Michigan State, which I think is a mistake. It felt like that was a chance there. You could have created a turnover or two and maybe got a defensive score that would have switched the momentum of that game. So we'll see how that evolves over the next 3 weeks. Right. I mean, I think that might be the best offense right now is a defensive score.
Yeah, or at least just getting the ball or something on
short field,
side of the field, so you don't have to go as far. Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing is just you can't give up that big a field position and hope to make it up with this offense. And if it is a defensive score or just any turnover, and that's kind of been unfortunate. We haven't generated a whole lot of turnovers on defense this year either, so that makes that turnover margin, extra painful at that point. When you can't even. Can't count on making it up on the defensive side of things. So I think they'll have to do that. We'll probably touch on this more when we hit Maryland, but they're definitely going to have to put more pressure on than we saw against Michigan State for sure.
It feels like Michigan State really played like they had nothing to lose, right? They had loser 6 in a row.
Well, they really don't at this point.
They just was like, or let's go. I mean, I feel like I wish Nebraska could get back to that. It felt like a few games ago they were just like, well, let's just play loose. And I think this bowl game looming out there maybe impacted how they played against Michigan State. We'll see how well they can come out against the Terps. But the sooner they can get back to playing loose and confident, the quicker they're going to get to that 6th win and maybe even more.
Dave, and to your point, you said something, and I was trying not to laugh like literally out loud when you said it, because this is the point we are with this defense, right? You were saying, oh, it didn't seem like we were pressuring the quarterback that much and getting to him and running some of those plays and being aggressive. We had 3 sacks in the game, right? I mean, there was like periods like last year and a couple of years ago where we'd be happy to have 3 sacks in 5 games. You know what I mean? Like, and now 3 sacks in a game is just not quite up to our standard anymore, right? And no, I like it though. I like it, but it makes me smile. And you're absolutely right in your point, but at the same time, it's just ironic, I guess. Is that the right term for that? So yeah.
All right, guys. Let's head on into our scoring explosion, which is what we'd love to finally see in one of these games. I mean, I would take anything in the 20s practically as a scoring explosion. I can't believe we scored 31 versus Purdue, right? I mean, that was amazing.
Yeah, we did. We did have special team score there, though. So
yeah. Now, all right. So Nebraska versus Maryland, and really these next 3 games with Wisconsin and Iowa. Boomer, how do you think we're going to try to move the ball here? There's a chance that Billy Kemp is back potentially this week. That could be a weapon that could maybe change the dynamic a little bit.
Yeah, it would definitely help, and I think if they can get just some more just consistency and momentum in the running game, and some of that I think is self-inflicted. It just seems like they rotate running backs more frequently than me sitting on the couch, as Rob liked to say, than I think we normally should. I thought Emma Johnson showed a lot of good, had a lot of good rushes in that game, and then it would seem he'd be out or didn't get the start in various time possessions, and it just never seemed like we allowed any one of the running backs to really get any kind of momentum going in that game, and it was constantly rotating him in and out, and that makes it tough. And then when they'd fall behind, the chains, then you have to throw in the next couple downs, and that's a big problem. And I think maybe against Maryland you need to be a little more patient with that running game, let one running back have a couple series at it and see if he can get something going. I think that'd be your best bet, as far as offense against the Terps go, because they're not the greatest rushing defense in the country, so they're okay. But
what's their numbers, Boomer?
They're 26th. I mean, they're pretty good. I mean, they don't compare to Nebraska's rushing. They're allowing about 115 yards a game, roughly. So
115. Okay.
Yeah. I see them as 28th, but we're whatever. It's
either way,
apples and oranges. Yeah. And
one's metric.
I mean, their passing defense, which is even worse. Is like 75th or something like that in the country,
right?
And funny.
Don't ask about our passing offense, though.
Well, statistically, the matchup doesn't play in our favor, then, right? I mean, we'd rather have a team that's struggling.
It does, because they can't rush the ball, and we only give up 77 yards, and they've only averaged like 31 or something the last few games.
But that's the next segment.
Sorry, my bad.
I mean, you save that stat though, but I mean, like. I mean, that could balance out, and I mean, I'm exaggerating there a little bit there, but I mean, like, the reality is that I mean, Maryland, and we're going to see this with the other teams. I mean, more and more here is this: if Harburg doesn't show that he can throw the ball a little bit better, they're going to continue to stuff the box. Now, if Honky was on the show, he'd tell you, "Oh, we just got to run around them and do other stuff." And I agree with him. We do need to have a diverse running game to fix that too. So it needs to be a combination, but.
And one thing though too, and I'm curious, and I'd like maybe, and I can't believe I'm about to say this, so please excuse me if I throw up afterwards, but I don't understand why we haven't gotten more of the short passing game going, right? Like with some of the screen passes, or even like just short, just little patterns over the top to the tight end. I know that we have done some of those, but a lot of them seem like they're more kind of like post routes, like over the middle or something, right? Like where not something like a classic 3-yard tight end pass over the middle, like classic Jay Novacek, or like, Travis Kelce or something like that, where it's like a yardage and then let your tight end do the rest of the work. I don't see a
Do
lot
you
of
think
those.
that some of that might stem from Harburg's throwing motion kind of being sidearm, and they're worried about those getting knotted down, back
Maybe.
down, batted down at the line, because they do come off kind of weird
Yeah, because
angles.
a lot of those require for the defensive guy to be charging the quarterback, then him to throw over to like the defensive player who had released that defensive guy, right? And then
I
kind
mean,
of be open. So
we've seen him hit a few of those out routes. The one touchdown for Fedoni a couple of games ago, several plays on that drive where they seem to be giving the out to us, and we were able to take it. But yeah, I don't know. It's a really good question, Boomer. I mean, the coaching staff has said they've kind of adjusted this offense to fit Harburg's strengths, but sometimes I question that, right? I mean, I was watching him again this week, and I mean, the stats tell you that we're a running team, but outside of a few busted plays, we really don't consistently run the ball that effectively, right? But when Harburg does break one, he has absolute straight line breakaway speed, right? I mean, and defenders pick bad angles and he runs right by him. But he doesn't have a lot of lateral quickness, and
Right.
and and he has gotten better with pitching the ball, but when he's running down the line, and Rob, I think you had some tweets about this, he tends to be a little tentative, and he's better off when he is just one step and go, and turn up field and let those jets kick in.
yeah, and Rule kind of commented, and I'm not quite sure if he was thinking on the same thing that I'm thinking, but he said that they want to see him just run through the faces of the defenders, right? Which is kind of what I said, is I don't understand why Harburg is like, he's got 6-7 inches on some of these like defenders, right? These safeties and
5'10"
whatnot.
cornerback,
and he's probably and he's a 6. Yeah, what is he? 6'5"?
He's 6'5",
6'5".
Like 210.
He's 210, and and he's built like a Sherman tank. I mean, he's going over, and it almost feels like there's some hesitancy from him, like almost like he's afraid that he's going to get hurt, because he knows if he gets hurt, who knows what we've got waiting behind him.
At this point, I mean, we just gotta,
But at this point, I mean, come on, man, go John Elway helicopter to the end zone, man. Like that, I mean, and as a Raider fan, me saying that hurts, but I still want to see it. I want to see some John Elway helicopter to the end zone against Green Bay, I think, like action. Like, I mean, it needs to happen.
It's an interesting.
And we also need a fullback on 4th and 1.
Sure.
Shout out to Rob Zabka.
But I think I'd like to see Harburg when he's picking up that speed and ready to head north-south, being able to lower his shoulder. He's 6'5", so he does need to get down a little bit more because if he's gonna be, what was the phrase that Rule wants him to be hitting guys?
Run through guys' face. Run through someone's face. To
do that, he needs to get down to their face. He's right. He's a little tall, right? So I mean, I think I'd love to see Harburg just learn us how to do a stiff arm or to lower his shoulder and see if a guy bounces off, right? You don't see that too much.
Who he reminds me of when he runs a lot. And again, I'm not making 100% comparison, but it's almost like a Darren McFadden, like, one of the biggest things that people said about
Raider reference. Good.
Well, actually, I was thinking more like when he was on the Cowboys, but okay. But like, he was a high and tight, but very upright runner, right? And Harburg has that same quality to him.
Long strides.
Yeah, like you don't want to get in front of him. Like if he's running at you, you're thinking twice about whether or not you want to tackle him or just maybe try to trip him.
Yeah.
And it kind of has that same feel to it when he's running, because even that, I mean, God, when he is running and he's carrying that ball and he's got it up here, just like 2 hands on the ball running right there, that is like some sexy stuff going on. I mean, that's how you want to see all of our running backs carrying the ball. But when he's going sideways, he looks very like, I keep thinking he's going to get the ball knocked out, or he just looks confused. A lot of times he'll drop down,
look
like
fluid out there.
Yeah, he'll like drop down like he's Derek Carr in the pocket or something, and somebody like gets near him. So
I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, because a quarterback conversation really is at this point best suited for off-season talk, right? Because I mean, regardless of what happens, I think Harburg is back next year, And I also think that they'll likely bring in additional quarterbacks for more competition, right? I don't know who actually ultimately starts. It's interesting. I mean, Harburg, by all accounts, didn't get any coaching last year at all, right? I mean, like literally Whipple didn't even want him in the QB room. So he probably hasn't been properly developed. I have seen him make some progress, I think, on some of his technique. I see maybe a few less of the sidearm throws now than it was beginning of the year. But I would love to see an off season with him with a lot of time to actually work, whether it's with Nebraska's coaching staff or even doing some of those QB camps. And I mean, at this point, if I was Heinrich Harburg and his family, and you have a chance to maybe maintain your starting role at Nebraska, go get yourself a QB coach for a couple of weeks or something. I don't know, but work on your footwork. He's got a great arm, right, guys? I mean, he's got a cannon. He can throw the ball.
He does. It's just that throwing motion is
and because of the throwing motion, he's inaccurate, right? I mean, he has crazy slot angles and whatnot. He's not consistent, and thus sometimes when Fedoni's wide open over the middle, he throws it 5 yards off, and it's a pick, right? I mean,
and sometimes he's just not seeing the open guys too. I mean, that was a problem
on those throws too. And somebody pointed it out today. I can't remember if it's Huskers X and O's on Twitter or somebody. I sorry if I'm not giving credit to the right account, but they were posting pictures of it, like when Harburg is throwing from a certain position or motion in the pocket, his throws are right on. But as soon as he either has to take a step up or he's just a little bit off balance, he's flying the ball, like you said, 5-6 feet over guys' heads, which have been resulting in interceptions.
Yeah, it's typically thrown off your back foot.
Throwing it, so he's just kind of off balance, and it's and sometimes he's doing it when there's nobody near him, which is the thing that concerned me the most. I think on some of those, you'd see it and he'd be standing there and still airmail it. Does he have the potential? Absolutely. Could he possibly be using it? Do we have any? I know they'll probably go out. They'll probably get a transfer, right? I mean, there's a couple that we speculated on in our chat. Whatever. I don't want to get into that right now because I don't want to be accused of tampering. But and then we've even got our what it was at the top 11. Freshmen coming in.
Danny Kalen.
Danny Kalen. And you never know. He'll probably be there in spring, or hopefully he'll be there in the spring.
Yeah. Good chance.
And that'll give him an entire offseason to work with the team and everything. And as we know, Rule is not afraid to start freshmen. Now, again, that just kind of goes to where, how does he feel like this team progress-wise and, if starting a freshman quarterback is going to set the team back or not. But there will be options next year, and there will be a competition.
Yeah, I mean, I think, whoever it is, they want to try to fix the quarterback position to the greatest degree possible, because I think the team, if the defense kind of continues to gel, could be really good next year, and you want to be able to have an offense that can complement that, especially that back half of that season.
That is any plus to next season. At least it starts fairly slow. You've got kind of a longer runway.
Yeah, you want to stack wins early, though.
Year, so. Yeah, I'm sure we'll get somebody out of the portal this year. I'm guessing, out of our 3 quasi starters this year, 2 of them aren't going to be here next year, and we'll speculate on that later at the end of the season.
Yeah, it feels that way. Anyway.
So I think you're going to have to get at least 1 or not 2 guys out of the portal just for depth purposes alone. If not,
it's a thin QB. When you get 3 scholarships, you should have at least 4.
Yeah, I would think 4 to feel good about it, and sometimes you have 5. I mean,
yeah. We've had that in not recent years. Another thing, I mean, this is obviously the offense is going to evolve a little bit. If you're going to stick with Harburg, I would explore at least having some more increased RPO element to an offense, because again, if he's a really good straight line runner, I can just in my mind picture him. I could totally see why the previous coaching staff, recruited the guy, because he's got great straight line speed, and with an RPO where a quarterback takes the ball and just heads north south at an angle, that's his game, and he's not running east-west as much. And you could pull that down in a play action, essentially, and throw the ball over the middle, which he has the arm to do. So I totally get why they liked Heinrich, and maybe they could have more plays that are better suited for his skill set if he's our starting quarterback going forward.
And also next year, you'd hope to have Gabe Irvin back healthy, and I don't know, from your
and you got to fix
so
the
you'd have more
offensive
running back depth to certainly help too. I think right now there's so much pressure on just the few players we do have, and I think that's setting everyone back a little bit too. So
yeah, but I want to talk about the next 3 games because that's what we got. I should say the next 5 games because we've got 3 league games left. We've got the championship game. We got our bowl game,
right?
Which could be a New Year's Eve.
New Year's Six bowl if we're going to win the championship game, right? So I like it. I like that thinking.
If we get there, guys, if we get there, it's because
we get there.
Our defense, right? Let's talk throwing the bones and all things defense. And Rob, what do you think the defense is going to have to do stat line here to beat Maryland? What do we need to keep the Terps offense to point wise?
Set the edge, blitz, force Tagal. God damn you,
Talia Tagovailoa.
Sorry, we'll just call him the quarterback. Basically on his heels. He's obviously going to run when he can, but at the same time, I think it's going to take pressuring him. I think because we're going to do a lot of man coverage probably on wide receivers. Maybe some Tampa 2 kind of stuff, but I mean, really, we'll probably be rushing 5-6 guys throughout the day, like just doing crazy blitzes, things like that in that 3-3-5 defense. That's what I think they're going to probably have to do because you're going to have to keep him on his feet because their rush game is terrible. So, I mean,
Maryland doesn't run the ball effectively at all.
No.
And Talia can be prone to INTs. He's got probably the best skill set of any quarterback we've played outside of JJ McCarthy and maybe Hudson Card.
Yeah, and I said that I did say, I think I said it on Twitter today. Someone said, what's your score prediction for this game? And I said 27-20 Huskers. I said, but the defense is going to have to at least score one of those touchdowns.
Yeah, and I think that could be the case. And so I think you have to get pressure on him. I think he's prone to INTs when you do get pressure on him. So I do expect them to be more aggressive in going after him because now, I mean, when you say that, right, Boomer, you say, oh, they're already one-dimensional. That's when they're going to figure out some way to pop a big run on us, right? So I think the defense will still need to be on its screws to make sure that they keep them one-dimensional.
Yeah, and the big thing on that is, pressure, like we said earlier. I mean, like last week, Maryland did not play well against Penn State. They looked pretty well overmatched. And
Penn State has their number.
They got sacked like 6 times, I think. They had like negative 49 rushing yards or thereabouts. So, yeah, I don't think we're quite up to Penn State's snuff, as an overall team, because they scored 51 points in that game, held Maryland to 15. But I think, that's, again, with our offense, that's what you have to do. You have to try to keep a team into that teens area. Maryland looked okay for a while against Ohio State, but still ultimately only managed 17 points in that. They did lose to Illinois and Northwestern. They had 20-some points.
About Jekyll and Hyde,
allowed almost 30, I think, in both those games. So, they do give up some points, but, when they're on pace, like they played Michigan State earlier this year and kind of crushed them. I think it was 31-9. So there is they can be a capable team. They've just hit a rough stretch like Maryland always seems to do, the second half of the season. And I think that's just what the defense has to do. They have to get pressure on them. They can't let them run, try to keep them one-dimensional and just try to generate those sacks just because that sets a team so back against us. And then, just get those, 3 and outs or only 1 first down a series and get the ball back to the offense so they can have that shot to break that play. So I think they just have to stick with the formula and just get that to work, again this week. Being at home, and this is a high-pressure game, for Maryland because they still got to get that one more win to get a bowl.
Yeah, and they have they have Michigan after this.
Michigan after us, and then they end at Rutgers, which is not a joke this year. So this, I guess on paper, you might say is their best chance to get a bowl, to be bowl eligible.
Yeah, it's tough because they're on the road at Nebraska and then on the road at Rutgers, right?
Yeah, Rutgers. So, they'll be underdogs in both those, I imagine. And when you think you started 5-0 and you're in mid-November risking not making a bowl, there's a lot of pressure on them, I think, in this game. So they might be trying to force a few things, and the defense hopefully can take advantage of that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's what we're going to look forward to. Vegas Jerry says we need at least 5 sacks in the game. I would take that. Yeah,
Big Macs
absolutely.
for everybody. Yep.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right, Rob. Well, any other keys to the game that you're looking forward to? This is
we need to return the ball on special teams.
There we go. Let's talk about that for a little bit. That was
frustrating.
Hey, Boomer.
Yeah.
You know it's just what was the stat you guys threw out at me earlier?
821 yards return in 1 year. I think in 2001, 850. There you go. And we had 24 this year.
Holy cow! That's extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably my biggest disappointment with how this season's gone. Especially, we had the talk at the beginning of the season, off season, about how good or the focus was going to be on special teams, and we weren't going to be just fair catching everything, letting go to the end zone. We're going to be returning the stuff, and injuries play a role. I get it, but you just can't seed that. So
overall, outside of that, special teams looks fine. Like, it's not something that's like the fact that we have to talk about it is what bothers me. But every other aspect of special teams is not bothering me. Kickoffs are fine. Kickoff returns or whatever.
Punts are a little inconsistent, but not
punts are a little bit, but they haven't cost us.
Field goal kicking has gotten better.
Yeah, they haven't cost us a game. There was a couple kicks where I think there was like some pressure that got on our punter, and he shanked it for like 34 yards, which is great because in the past we used to shank it for like 15. So I mean, there's an improvement, right? But I mean, over in our kicking game, our field goals and our field goals and our extra points, he hasn't missed an extra point all year. That's me knocking on wood. Sorry. Sorry, Tristan. I hope I did not jinx you.
He's not gonna miss.
But
he doesn't listen to the show.
We know who to blame.
Do you know that for a fact, Dave?
Do
you know that for a fact?
I hope he doesn't.
Last week's show had 850 downloads. Do you know who every single one of them was?
We've had way more than that. That's a false stat. We know that. It's in the thousands. We've always in the thousands.
Yeah.
Crush that number. It's like 30,000 or some stupid thing her dad says. All right. Let's anything else on the Huskers? You want to start talking about some other best bets of the week out here? Let's do it.
The Betcast picks of the week.
All right, guys. This is a slate. I mean, it is loaded with games. Let's start with a marquee game out of our own Big Ten conference and take Michigan going to Happy Valley. I hear it's like a pseudo whiteout, like it's a stripe out or something. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, they go white and blue, like based off of like the sections or something like that.
There we go. Wolverines favored by 4.5, over under at 45. I think I got this game already at Michigan 4. So there's my cards. I think Michigan is going to be well motivated, and I think they're the better team. I think Penn State is only this close of a spread because they're home. Boomer, what do you think?
Yeah, I was a little surprised the spread was this low. Especially as good as Michigan looked and as bad as Penn State played against Ohio State. I mean, they were just kind of blown out of that game. I think maybe some of it's just. Maybe people don't have a lot of faith in Michigan just from their schedule that they've played. I mean, they haven't played a murderer's row yet, so maybe people are being a little apprehensive on that and how any sort of, I don't know if people have heard, but there's been some shenanigans and goings on with Michigan, in the last few weeks, and I can't even put into words all the twists and turns of that. That'll take its own show. It'll be a whole season of 30 for 30 on ESPN at some point. I mean, it's outstanding. Every day it's something new. So, yeah. I can't even keep up, but. I still expect Michigan to win this game. I don't think Penn State's got an offense that's going to score appreciably enough to win the game against a defense like Michigan. Even if they have the signs or don't, Michigan's defense is pretty solid. And I don't think Penn State has the weapons to win this. So I'd probably go with Michigan State here, to cover. I think they would cover 4.5.
Both defense are pretty similar, but I would think that Michigan's offense, at least on paper, looks a lot better than Penn State. Rob, you got a quick take?
I was going to be a contrarian here and do it, but I've watched Penn State a couple times, and their quarterback is just not that good.
He could be good he's very young, and he's only started 8 games.
He might be good down the line, but I mean, he throws with the accuracy of our quarterback sometimes. So I have to go. I would say Michigan 4.5 is, as Vegas Jer says, is the suitcase bet this week.
All right.
Which means to me put all your money on Penn State, because I've seen Vegas Jer.
So I would say that if you want to trail Vegas Jer, get it now, because that number is probably going to move.
Yeah.
A couple weeks ago, Vegas Jer said it was a max bet with Michigan versus, was it Rutgers? I can't remember who they were playing, and he got it early in the week at -28. By the time we did the show, it was already -31. I think it went up even higher from that. They won by 28, so Vegas Jer probably got his money back. He pushed, but anybody who took it at over 28 would have lost that one. But there's a lot tighter spread there, Vegas Jer. I agree with you on this one. I've already got my bet in. I think Michigan will cover.
Full disclosure, Dave, on our weekly picks with Skip, I did take Penn State to cover the 4.5. Because in my heart, my gut tells me it's going to be a game that comes down to a field goal, because Michigan doesn't have all of Penn State's signs this week.
All right. I have no idea. It was last week. All right. Sorry, Vegas Jer. Yeah, it was frustrating. I might have trailed you and lost on that one. I got to admit, I did not put.
He did get Indiana last week too. I'll give him that. So
yes,
can't argue that. And random changes, with the Penn State, quasi whiteout, the blue, white, every section. It'd just be kind of fun to see if Nebraska fans could pull that off. I mean, I've heard us try to clap in sync, in the stadium. We can't manage that. I'd love to see us try to alternate patterns there, just for fun. Maybe one season we should try that, just see what happens.
I'd love to see if we can pull it off. I agree. We seem very uncoordinated though. All right, let's move on. Rapid fire here, maybe a little bit. Texas Tech going to Kansas. At Kansas, Bean has been playing really good as their second string quarterback, and obviously we got some big victories now. Over under at 62.5. I'm thinking Kansas can cover this. Boomer, what do you think?
Yeah, give me Kansas. I've watched the Jayhawks these last couple of weeks. They're a good-looking team. Wouldn't really want to play them.
Nope.
So unless Leipold's distracted by Michigan State talk, nope. Give me the Jayhawks.
Yep.
He squashed that today. He
he said he's lifelong Kansas. He's not going to leave. I don't know.
Jayhawk. Yep.
Well,
and you know what? I'm going to jump on the Lance Leipold bandwagon here, and yeah, I think Kansas is rolling. They're having a really good season this year, and I think they cover the 3.5 at home.
Yep, Leipold's doing a great job. All right, let's head down where it matters more. SEC land. Bama at Kentucky. Only 11. Bumped up to 11. It was 10.5 for most of the week. Over under at 47. Rob, I used to always have a first half bet for Alabama. I might go back to this, but this feels kind of short. I feel like Alabama is gonna run Kentucky. Kind of like how Georgia did.
I am not gonna play around with a Bama team that has a point to prove. I will say that a Nick Saban team with a point to prove. They have not looked world beaters this year.
LSU last week,
but after all the talk, they just every week they're just on the outside. There are still prognosticators that are saying Bama has a chance to sneak into the playoff and all this other stuff. And I feel like this is a game where they're going to go into Kentucky and maybe prove that point, which means hedge that bet, people, because Kentucky will probably pull this one off. So,
Boomer, what do you think?
Yeah, give me Bama. The world's so dark. They're going to sneak themselves into the playoffs some way, shape, or form. And really, when's the last time Kentucky's pulled off a major upset, or let alone anyone in the SEC for that matter? So, yeah, go Bama. They'll win this. So probably by 13, 14. So
there we go. That's a win. All right. I like a lot of the Big 12 games this week. Baylor, which is just awful this year. I don't know if Dave Aranda's.
Thanks, Matt Rule.
Well, I mean, honestly, Rob, if you think about it, it really speaks to how well Dave Aranda had this team going with Rule's players, and now that he doesn't, where are they at?
Can you imagine? There was actually a whole contingent of people that wanted that guy to be our coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
For shame, people. For shame.
Yeah, I'm sure he was vetted, but I think Rule would have got hired over him anyway. But Going to Manhattan, K-State favored. I did find a 20.5 when I made these a few hours ago. It might be up at 21 already now. Over under at 55. I like the Wildcats here, even though it is a big number.
Yeah, that's a lot of points. Boy. I mean, K-State coming off that near win against Texas, I don't know. K-State can put up a lot of points. It's just, do you think they can keep Baylor from scoring at all? So
they've covered their last 4 games at home straight up, and have only given up like 3 points. I mean,
yeah,
they're beating bad teams, and I don't think
they are. Yeah, it was like TCU and Houston, and they played Texas Tech, won by 17-ish. So I guess Baylor might be is worse than Texas Tech. So if you want to use that as a measuring stick, that's just a lot of points. I don't like it. 20, especially if you end up getting a 21.
Under the key number 21, though.
Yeah, it is. I was gonna say it's just under that.
Yeah. So if you listen to the show right now and get it for 20.5, maybe, but if you're listening later and it's 21, that might be a little questionable. But yeah.
All right. Rob, how about this one? Okie State. Just they found a quarterback and a running back, and they just keep on winning. They took down Oklahoma and Bedlam. Only 2.5 point favorites on the road in Orlando.
You know what? I really like what the Oklahoma State fan base has been doing on Twitter these days, and so I feel like, OK State probs. We follow each other on there, and he's a great follow if you're not following him. And we had a good time during the logo contest back over the summer in the off season. I like Okie State at 2.5 over UCF, even they're playing down in Florida, and I just think this classic Big 12 matchup here, it's really gonna. I mean, they Okie State. You know what? I don't know. I like them. I don't know. UCF just hasn't done anything to impress me this year. Obviously,
an All-American running back, a 7th-year quarterback with Alan Bowman. I mean, he's been everywhere. Boomer. I mean, it feels like almost a stinky number. I'm a little surprised.
I was a little suspicious of that. I mean, you've got Oklahoma State, who's looking at possibly playing for the Big 12 title, kind of thing, and Central Florida
let down. Maybe it's a spot
win, if I remember right. And that was against Cincinnati.
They played some tough. Yeah, they played.
A lot of these new Big 12 teams are kind of struggling. Us present numbers that low, so unless there's something we don't know about,
the over under though is really interesting too, because it's like almost 70 points. You know what I mean? 65.5. It's like that's a really big number too.
Yeah, give me the Cowboys in this one. They'll cover 2.5.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, speaking of over-unders, this is opposite of that. Here it is. Rutgers at Iowa. Iowa favored by a point. Over-under is 28. I've actually saw it at Caesars at 27. I don't know how much lower it can go, guys. This is a record, a modern-day record for an over-under. And I would probably take the under because I just, how can you take the over at this point? I don't know.
I've never been so happy for an 11 a.m. start for Nebraska, because this game is now going to be a 2:30 game, right? Like after the Nebraska game. And it's always a good time. I'm always wanting to take a nap around then. So I'll just throw this game on, go lay down on the bed, close my eyes. Score will be 0-0. I'll wake up and it'll be 2-0.
Maybe. Boomer, there's a lot of fun ways you can bet this game, right? Obviously, 28 is a key number. Iowa's only favored by a point. I feel like it might be the best bet just to take Iowa, because Iowa just tends to win these games. Do you really think Rutgers is going to go into Iowa City and get a W? I don't know. The team totals, both of them are 13.5. So if you think the loser is not going to get 2 touchdowns, just take the under on whoever that is, right?
Yep.
The first half over under is probably 13.5. You could bet. I saw Iowa second half team total at 6.5. I think that might be your best bet. Iowa tends to win these games by scoring 7 to 10 points in the second half, right? They'll be 0-0 at half, and then Iowa somehow figures out to score at least one offensive touchdown at some point. Take the Iowa team total in second half. Take the under. I don't know.
Either team get a hit, or just both pitchers going to just be dialing it in.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
Yeah,
we're talking about football. My bad.
I mean, I plan to watch this game. I'm going to set my TV to black and white and turn on some old timey music and mute the sound. I don't know
That
if you
was
saw
a
little
great
video
tweet.
that tweet.
Who did that
today.
last year,
Yeah.
Boomer?
Yep.
No, that was this
I
year.
saw it on Sickos committee, but I don't know if they originated it. But it was a great tweet. They had the game-winning field goal with Iowa and Northwestern set to the nice grainy black and white stuff and some.
Well, I saw the whole highlights. They had everything.
Ragtimey jazz. Yeah, that was awesome. But
This
game is just glorious for the Big Ten right here. Over under 28 and Iowa -1. Man,
It's become an entire storyline on its own.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
to your point, the games are ugly, but everybody's now just paying it really acute attention because it's like, is this possible? Can they continue to hit?
Somehow it is. Yes, and Rutgers someday is going to get a big win in a game like this. They're always close to pulling off a win every year. They just haven't done it. I almost want to pick them, but I just don't think they'll pull it off.
Let's go Rutgers.
Yeah.
Let's go Rutgers.
Yeah.
I'm taking
I'd like
Rutgers.
them to win. I just
I'm
don't
taking
think
Rutgers
they
to
will.
win it.
Iowa's going to pull off something annoying and win. And Vegas Jared's already hoping the Nebraska Iowa is going to be 26 and a half, which
he's
is
right.
going to be really
it's
amazing.
going to be lower.
I'm looking forward to that too. That'll be the cherry on top of this Big Ten West, final year. It'll be that
as we
Nebraska,
take the
Iowa
championship by
final.
scoring 27 points on our own.
That game might end 3-2, Rob. So yeah, but
if Nebraska Iowa is that low at 26 and a half, that's where you really look at the team totals because one of them will have to be down to like 11 or something like that. It's going to be insane. Yeah, I don't know.
Shubba Purdy comes in and throws for 350 yards and rushes for 110 and saves the entire season, in the Wisconsin game or something.
I would say back to this game, Rob.
Sorry, my bad.
Winset, the Rutgers quarterback, is definitely INT prone. I could totally see a pick six. I don't know if you could find a team prop bet on does Iowa get a pick six or not, but I would probably take a flyer on that. I
have noticed, and maybe I'm crazy, but DraftKings they don't do like prop bets on college games or anything.
Colorado does not have individual player prop bets at all.
Yeah.
It's not allowed in Colorado. Other states do. But you can do things like offensive touchdowns, I think defensive touchdowns, etc. So it cannot be individual prop bets, though.
Yeah, I think Nebraska just allows betting on games prior to 1967. So yeah, we're not quite there.
They
yet.
have longest touchdown. Which team has the longest touchdown? They have total touchdowns. Over under.
All right, let's go on
to
Tennessee at Missouri. Mizzou having a great season. Tennessee, though, favored on the road in Columbia, 1.5 points. Over under at 57. This is ranked versus ranked. What do you think, Boomer? Boomer, you're muted, I think.
Sorry. Yep, this is battle for second place in the SEC East. There, like I said, Missouri's having a good season, and they played some teams fairly tough. Boy. Oh gosh, why don't you give me Missouri just because they're at home? I don't feel great about it, but I'm definitely going to watch the game because it'll be interesting.
I am a little surprised that they're a home underdog. Rob, what do you think?
I mean, God, they have the spread right. It's basically a pick 'em, right? I mean, other than Mizzou at home versus Tennessee, a chance to
Tennessee is coming off that challenging game against UConn.
Well, they're both 7-2. One's ranked 13, one's ranked 14. I mean, I don't know. This is a perfect chance for Mizzou to shit the bed, so I'm going to go ahead and take Tennessee on it.
All right.
I mean, you want to pick for me, that would be my pick. There you
go. More ranked versus ranked. There's just so many good games here. I had to hit them all. Utah trying to bounce back. Going up to Seattle. Washington is favored by 8.5. I've seen this slip up to 9.5, I think, already. Over under at 50. I kind of like the Huskies here. Utah seems to be licking their wounds, and they're not as good on the road. Rob, what do you think?
Well, you know what? The Heisman run for Penix is on, and I think this is a game where he's going to come out and show the world why he thinks he deserves it. I mean, it's
He
really
needs a stat stuffing game. There's no
and he
doubt about
does,
that.
and well, it's going to be hard to get that against the Utah defense. I will say that, but at the same time, they are going to be at home, and there was talk about Heisman for him, but like this week, it's kind of really heated up for some reason. So, I mean, this is a prove it game for him. I think he's going to come out. I think the Huskies win by 2 touchdowns.
Okay, all right, Boomer.
Yeah, Washington, I think, is looking for that statement kind of game here as the season closes. The narrative lately has been that they've kind of struggled in these games they played, since Oregon. They haven't looked super sharp in all of them. They've won them all, so got to give them credit for that. So I think, they're going to need a game like this where they just come out and kind of beat an opponent fairly handily from start to finish. And Utah's a good team. I don't know if Utah will have the offense to keep up with Washington in the long run in this game, so. Yeah, why don't you give me the Huskies? I think they can cover 8.5. This is probably a 14-point win for them.
Yeah, I think Washington, just from a perception standpoint, is going to want to come out and look good. Oregon throttled Utah right in Salt Lake City, so I think right now it's a perception scenario in Washington, even though they're the one with the 0 in their record. Right now is being perceived by many as not as good as Oregon, a team that they beat. And ultimately, it's probably going to come down to the Pac-12 championship game between those two. But it's kind of a pole position thing here. So I kind of like the Huskies to try to show what they're made of. All right. Boy, in past years, this is a biggest game of the year. It's still an important one in Miami. Now bowl eligible at 6-3. Going to Tallahassee, Florida State, favored by 2 touchdowns. Over under 51.5. Florida State doesn't really need style points at this point. They just need to win the ACC. What do you think, guys?
Man, this is a game Florida State. I think they just take it away. They're not messing around this year.
They're the better team.
They look really good this year. I always laugh because even our buddy over at Pick Six Previews,
Brett Ciancia,
he had Florida State and he said that, and I was laughing. And I think even on that show, I made a little bit of fun. Like, okay, is this going to be like your, this team? Because I think he picked like Miami or Florida State a couple of years ago.
North Carolina a couple of years
ago.
North
Carolina, that was the one. And
Sorry,
so I was giving him a hard time, but man, he nailed this one. They just look good. They look solid.
You can go back and listen to that show. I fully supported Brett on picking Florida State. I did question his picking of Wisconsin to win the Big Ten West, and that's where I feel like I got him this year. So, Boomer, what do you think about this one? Seminoles by a mile?
I think so. I mean, even when Florida State doesn't play very well, I mean, they didn't blow the doors off Pitt, but they still won 24-7 this last week. They've just kind of smoked everybody else in the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that Boston College game, it seems like an eternity ago if you're Florida State at this point.
That's the truth.
Yeah, they don't have a whole lot to finish the season. It's Miami. Then I think they took a page from the SEC, and they have a directional Alabama school next week, and then close with Florida. And then you got your ACC title game. So, they can't afford to stumble here. So I think Florida State's going to.
This is their last ACC game, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So they've got to come out, just clobber Miami, just win convincingly. End that, and then go into the ACC title game, and get slip into the playoffs. So yeah, they I don't think they'll slip up here, and nothing Miami has showed me this year says they're going to do it. So yeah, give me the Seminoles.
They won't even if they are ahead, they'll probably just fumble the ball at the end of the game and.
Well, they'll just kneel on it. Yeah, they won't kneel on it. Yeah. So.
All right. Back to the SEC. Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin going into Athens in between the hedges. I got favored by 11. Over under at 58. Seems like I think Georgia could take care of this. I've been looking at the numbers. I also got Georgia first half. Brett is at 6.5 under a touchdown. That might be a safer bet. Lane Kiffin's notorious for fighting, clawing at the end of games, and tends to be a backdoor cover type of coach. Rob, what do you think here?
I don't know, man. This is the time of year. The Bulldogs still aren't the number one team in the college football playoff rankings. This is just, again, them, Florida State. This is the time of year they're just going to put the pedal to the metal. Floor it through the end of the season.
All right, you're taking Georgia.
Oh gosh, yeah. And I think
All right.
I think 11 is generous for this game.
All right. Here, Rob says easy cover here by the Bulldogs. Boomer?
Yeah, I agree. It's again, the world is so dark, and Georgia's gonna, get themselves undefeated at the SEC title game, and the SEC, unlike the Big Ten where everyone's conspiring against everyone else to destroy everyone, the SEC seems to always make sure they get a couple of really highly undefeated or only one loss teams in their title games. So, yeah, Georgia will win this, and I think they'll cover 11. So, 2 touchdowns, I think, by the end of the game.
Best last late game of the Saturday night slate. The complete opposite of Iowa Rutgers. You've got no defense USC versus a little bit of defense Oregon. Ducks favored by 15.5. The number's been going up. Over under now at 75.5. I think started around 73. And if you wait till Saturday morning, that will be getting closer to the 80s. Rob, what do you think here?
Wow. USC's defense has just been so bad this year.
Yeah. Think about that. Over 75 points. But if you look at these two teams, you really think they're going to be in the 30s?
Oh, yeah.
I think they're going to be in the 40s.
I think they'll be in the 40s.
Oregon.
I would take like a final of like 52-47 or something like that, right? Like
this is one of those games.
Yeah, like
it feels like the live total is going to get to triple digits, right?
Right now, I would take USC. I would take USC to cover in the over.
Yeah, I probably like both of them.
Yeah, I think the over is almost a gimme. I mean, USC, like you said, their defense is terrible, and they've lost a lot of games, but they're scoring in the 40s almost every game. I think even against Utah, they scored 32. I mean, this is going to be a decent number of points. Oregon will win. It's a pretty big cover. I think they'll win comfortably. I don't know if they'll cover, but yeah, they're definitely going to win the game, and I would certainly take the over. Again, don't wait if you want to take that over, but this is great. Just looking forward to how marvelous it's going to be with these teams in the Big Ten next year compared to the Iowas and Rutgers and everybody else in the world. And that's just going to be glorious.
This isn't going to be a game where if Oregon does come out and have a huge lead, I'm not going to like fall asleep and then wake up at the end for like an overtime where like the team came back from 29 down or whatever. Like that's not going to happen.
Matt Welch says 21 for Oregon, and Vegas Chair. USC will not score that many in Oregon, so maybe the Oregon defense is going to hold them down. I mean, another way
I don't
you
think
can look at
score
this,
40, but if they score, 30,
if they can get into the 30s, Oregon's
going to score 40. So I think we're all right. So,
I mean, another way, if you like both the USC to keep it tight, and you're a little worried that that's too high of a number, same game parlay this, and you can tease it down and probably get USC to by 13.5. and get the number closer to 70 probably, or 71, 72. That could be an approach if you like.
Smart move, Dave. I like that.
Yeah, a little betting tips here.
A little something.
That's right. All right, I don't have Nebraska up, but Maryland's favored by 1.5 or so. I think it's been moving down a little bit.
It's a stupid question if you ask me, Dave.
And it's one of those Big Ten games where you have Nebraska, Maryland with an over under mid 40s probably. You've got Whiskey Northwestern at 42, Minnesota and Purdue. Purdue's I think actually favored in that game, over under at 47.5. I think you could take the under in all of those in a parlay and potentially hit a big one, because at this time of year you're going to get a bunch of unders. I think the Big Ten. That's my take. Any thoughts on the Nebraska game? I know we don't bet Nebraska.
The over-under is 43.5 for Nebraska.
There you go.
Yeah. I think we said what I have to. I have said what I have to say. We're not losing another game for the rest of the year. So.
All right, take the money line.
Go big.
I can't bet on Nebraska anyway here, so it's at home. So yeah, I'm
That's
irrelevant.
right.
At this point.
Do you get arrested if you even talk about it?
I think so. So if any feds are listening, note I did not mention a score or anything here. So.
Go get your phone closer to the racetrack out there in Columbus, and you'll be fine. So
that's right. All right, guys, let's get out of here with some.
Hold on.
parting shots.
I was gonna say I had one game I wanted to bring up. I usually
Oh,
ask.
okay.
So,
All right.
yeah.
All right.
Well,
Fire
all right.
The Arizona is quietly having a very
Oh,
good
they're great.
season right
I
now,
love 'em.
right? And
The
their
quarterback's
recruiting
awesome.
classes are looking great. I really like what they're doing out there. You know, they're not just a basketball school anymore.
Jedfish. Yeah.
You know, and they play Colorado this week, and you know, it's an interesting thing because you know, Arizona's already bowl eligible. Colorado needs to win 2 games to be bowl eligible with 3 games left, right? Arizona's favored by 10. They're actually ranked, and the over-under is 55.5. I really like Arizona to cover on this one. I think
This is
Colorado
in Boulder. Is that right, Rob?
It is in Boulder, and that's why I like it even more. I mean, Colorado got embarrassed last week in Boulder, and I think that they just I don't know, man. I think they might be giving up on the season. That's just my thoughts. I just have it, and I really like Arizona on this one, and it is a 12:00 game, so I do like that fact. It's an early day
Is it
game.
12 o'clock or a 10 o'clock?
I'm sorry, 12 p.m. 10 o'clock game. I'm sorry, 10 o'clock game. It's an 8 o'clock. Was that an 8 o'clock? Or Jesus.
Is it a 10 a.m. Mountain
It
time?
says 12. No, it says 12 p.m. So it's it's an afternoon game. So
Okay, I thought that was Eastern time. Typically, you wouldn't start a game here at noon. That's
no, maybe you're right.
slot.
Yeah, maybe it is Eastern. Although usually it does say Saturday at 12 p.m. and all of these.
We'll chalk it up to daylight savings time. Check your local
we
TV,
will. We
listeners,
will
if you
because
wanna
I'm
watch.
really confused.
my phone does Mountain Standard Time, so all the time. So it's an early game. I like it.
I avoided this one, Rob. I get it. I've been riding the Arizona wagon this year. Actually, I've won multiple bets with them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a bad number.
That
I don't know. I don't know if
Oregon State game was great. I was in Disneyland and I was out Saturday night, like having a couple drinks, like to end the night by myself, watching that game on TV at a restaurant bar, and it was just, man, I was like, okay, I'm a believer now. Like that was the game where I was like, this is gonna set me on the edge about Arizona, and I'm a believer. You know,
no, they play
good.
good defense. Quarterback, I can't quite pronounce his name, is quite good. Jedfish, I thought was a good hire. It got a lot of criticism, and it's played out quite well. So
it's Fafita, I think is how you say his name.
Fafita.
Fafita.
Yep.
Yeah. So
all right. All right. Boomer, do you have any games since Rob?
No, I think they were all covered. I think that was a good slate. So most of the night
all
games were earlier.
covered. I get it.
All right, guys. Let's try to get to this parting shots this time. Here we go. All right. Let's start with Rob.
Well, first, I just want to apologize to the Redcast fans out there that have messaged me asking why I haven't been on the show for the last couple of weeks. You know, but life comes at you fast.
So nice.
Well, you know, life comes at you fast if you don't stop and smell the roses once in a while, you know. So, I mean, I went to Disneyland with the family, you know, some career things just going on, just life is there still, and the Huskers have been winning, and I've been enjoying it, and sometimes talking about it when you're enjoying something is just kind of like overkill on my brain, I'm finding, and I'm not used to this feeling. So I just, you know, I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be here, and
we're glad to have you back, Rob.
You know what, Dave, and you know what, Dave, too, other than the games we attended together this year, we haven't watched a game together. So maybe like we'll have to figure out maybe Black Friday or something. Are you going to be in Nebraska?
Well, I'll be here.
You will. Maybe we should figure that out. You know, watch it in the new garage setup, and you know, go from there.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's Rob's parting shot. Boomer, what do you have for me?
Well, mostly the texts and tweets I've been getting are asking why am I still in the show, but totally different story. But,
you need to drink more Kool-Aid.
Yeah, exactly. But otherwise, just kind of want to give a shout out. You know, basketball season is tipped off, and you know, both the men's and women's won their opening games, and Nebraska, you know, played again tonight. Again, they covered against Florida A&M. We haven't played the most exciting opponents with Lindenwood and A&M, and you know, not exciting opponents coming up for a while, but just from what we've seen, that's an exciting looking Nebraska men's team to watch. Dave would probably be the best to ask about it, but when you think of a Hoiberg team, it's kind of more what I thought they would look like this entire time, and maybe he's finally got that. I know we'll take a deeper dive into that, as the season goes on. It's just crazy we have stuff in November to talk about for football for a change, but could be exciting times for basketball. At least it'll be fun anyway to watch. So
it does look promising, and if they can stay healthy, and some of these transfers finally really hit, I think the culture is going in the right direction. And we'll know soon enough, right? They're going to have some better non-con games here very quick, and then you'll have the early Big Ten games. So we'll know quite early here if we got a different team or not. Well, it's hopefully building on last year's late run of success. That's for certain. All right, guys. Looking forward to the Nebraska game. It is on Peacock, so I'll have to do a trial run of that, I suppose, like everyone else. And it's the whole deal, I guess. And hopefully we're talking about a victory and start planning our bowl trip next week. So for now, let's call that another Go Big Redcast.
Go Big Red.
A Herd at Sports Network production.